NFL fans sound off on Shedeur Sanders losing to Deshaun Watson in Browns QB1 battle. Cowboys rookie Shedeur Pete touched by outpouring of support from Navajo fans. Dallas Cowboys projecting final 53-man roster. Looming question about Jyshawn Barham's NFL future has turned into his best asset. Can't miss play, 53-yard TD. Joe Milton 3 shows his arm cannon on deep scoring strike. 3 Cowboys preseason pet cats going into Game 3. Shedeur Sanders to the Dallas Cowboys? That is the question getting Cowboys fans talking. Because the bigger story could be what happens next. Shedeur's situation in Cleveland has created plenty of debate after the quarterback battle with Deshaun Watson. Fans are asking what happens if Cleveland goes another direction. That is where Dallas enters the conversation, and the rumor becomes much more interesting for Cowboys fans. Dallas has its own quarterback situation, but Shedeur's upside is enough to create interest. Would Dallas make a move, or simply wait? There is another reason this rumor matters. Dallas is building its final 53-man roster, and every preseason rep can change a player's value. Meanwhile, Cowboys rookie Shedeur Pete has been getting major support from Navajo fans. That support adds another layer as he fights for a roster spot. Then there is Jyshawn Barham. His uncertain NFL future could become one of his biggest assets. If he keeps showing coaches what he can bring, his value could rise quickly. Joe Milton 3 also gave fans a reason to pay attention with that 53-yard touchdown, showing off an arm that can change a game in one throw. For Dallas, 3 preseason players are already looking like potential favorites heading into Game 3, and their performances could decide who stays and who gets cut. But here's the part nobody knows yet. Could one unexpected roster move change the Cowboys' quarterback plans? And if Shedeur becomes available, would Dallas make the call? Cowboys fans may get a clue soon, because the next. What makes this situation even more interesting is the way Dallas is evaluating the roster around the quarterback position. The Cowboys don't necessarily need to make a huge move, but if an opportunity appears to bring in a young quarterback with upside, they have to at least consider it. Shedeur Sanders would bring a completely different dynamic. He's already played in big moments. He's comfortable handling pressure, and he has shown the ability to make throws from different areas of the pocket. The biggest question is whether the Cowboys would actually believe he can develop into a long-term starter. And that's where the preseason becomes important. Every snap matters right now. Coaches are watching decision-making, accuracy, mobility, command of the huddle, and how players respond when things don't go according to plan. A quarterback can have one great throw and still hurt his chances with a bad decision on the next drive. That's also why the final 53-man roster is so difficult to predict. Dallas has several players competing for limited spots, and some of those battles could come down to special teams, versatility, or one big preseason performance. A player who looks like a fringe roster candidate today could suddenly become difficult to cut after another strong game. The same thing applies to the Cowboys' young defensive players. Jyshawn Barham's situation is worth watching because his athletic ability gives the coaching staff another option when they're designing defensive packages. If he continues making plays, that uncertainty about his future could quickly turn into confidence from the organization. Then you have players like Joe Milton 3, who can change the perception of an entire game with one throw. That 53-yard touchdown showed exactly why arm talent continues to matter in the NFL. One deep ball can force defenses to respect the entire field. For Dallas, Game 3 is another opportunity for those preseason favorites to separate themselves from T. For the Cowboys, the biggest thing right now is figuring out which young players can actually handle the jump from preseason competition to meaningful NFL football. The coaching staff can watch practice all day, but game reps reveal a completely different level of pressure. That is especially important for the players fighting for the final roster spots. Dallas has to look beyond highlight plays. They need players who can be trusted when the game gets tight, when assignments change, and when one mistake could completely shift momentum. That brings the quarterback discussion back into focus. If Shedeur Sanders continues to be mentioned in connection with a possible move, the Cowboys would have to evaluate more than just his talent. They would have to look at contract details, draft capital, the team's current quarterback room, and whether bringing him in would actually make the roster better. There is also the question of timing. A move during the preseason could give a player less time to learn the offense and build chemistry with teammates. But waiting too long could mean another team gets involved first. That's why every update surrounding Cleveland matters. At the same time, Dallas has plenty of internal storylines that could become bigger than any outside quarterback rumor. Some of the young players are putting together performances that could force the coaching staff to rethink the depth chart. Joe Milton III is a perfect example of how quickly things can change. His deep touchdown pass wasn't just a highlight for fans. It was another piece of evidence for coaches evaluating what kind of value he can bring when the offense needs an explosive play. The defensive side has its own battles. Jyshawn Barham's athleticism gives him a chance to earn more opportunities, especially if he continues showing that he can play fast without losing discipline. And then there are the Cowboys' preseason favorites who still have another chance to make their case. The Cowboys front office would also have to consider how a potential Shedeur Sanders move fits into the bigger picture. Dallas can't make a decision based only on the excitement surrounding a young quarterback. They have to look at whether the player fits the offense, the coaching philosophy, and the long-term direction of the franchise. For Shedeur, the most important thing would be getting consistent opportunities to develop. A young quarterback needs reps, coaching, and a system that allows him to improve without having every mistake treated like a disaster. If that opportunity becomes available somewhere else, his situation could change quickly. That's why the Browns' quarterback competition remains something Cowboys fans are watching closely. But while the quarterback story gets most of the attention, Dallas still has several roster battles happening at the same time. The coaching staff has to decide which young players can contribute immediately and which ones still need more development. Special teams could become a major factor in those decisions. A player who can contribute on coverage units, return kicks, and also provide depth at another position can become extremely valuable when the roster is limited to 53 players. That could help some of the Cowboys' preseason standouts separate themselves. The defensive competition is particularly interesting because Dallas needs players who can create pressure, tackle consistently, and stay disciplined in coverage. Barham's athletic profile gives him an opportunity to make an impression, but consistency will be what determines how much trust he earns. Meanwhile, the offense continues to provide its own surprises. Joe Milton's arm strength gives him the ability to attack deep zones that other quarterbacks may not be able to reach as easily. Those explosive plays can completely change how coaches evaluate a player's potential. But one big throw isn't enough. The next step is showing that the player can consist. So, the Shedeur Sanders to Dallas Cowboys conversation is definitely something to keep an eye on, especially as the quarterback situation in Cleveland continues to develop. At the same time, Dallas has plenty of young players fighting to prove they belong on the final roster. From Joe Milton's big arm to Jyshawn Barham's potential and the Cowboys' preseason standouts, every snap is becoming more important. And if the situation with Shedeur changes, Dallas could suddenly become one of the teams worth watching. Let me know what you think. Would you want to see Shedeur Sanders in a Cowboys uniform? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more Cowboys news and updates.